This is a story about betrayal, about the kind of cruelty that leaves an indelible scar on your soul, a wound that festers long after the initial cut. It's a story about how someone you once loved, someone you trusted with your deepest vulnerabilities, can weaponize that intimacy and strike at the very core of your being. And it's a story about a pet, my beloved pet, who became an innocent casualty in a war that should have ended the moment our relationship did. This isn't just a tale of a breakup, it's a testament to the depths of human malice, the chilling reality of envy, and the profound, soul-crushing pain of having a piece of your heart stolen, deliberately, viciously, by the very person who once promised to protect it. I remember the day I met Whiskers. It wasn't a day, it was the day. I had been feeling a particular kind of loneliness, a quiet ache that no amount of social interaction or personal achievement seemed to fill. I had always loved animals, always felt a special connection to them, a comfort in their unconditional affection that human relationships often lacked. So, I decided it was time. I visited the local animal shelter, a place filled with hopeful eyes and wagging tails, and there he was. A tiny ball of fluff, all gray and white stripes, with eyes like emeralds that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages, even in his kittenhood. He was tucked away in the back of his cage, a little shy, a little reserved, not like the other boisterous kittens vying for attention. But something about him, about that quiet dignity, just called to me. I reached in, and he tentatively sniffed my finger before rubbing his soft head against my hand. It was an instant connection, a silent understanding. I knew, in that very moment, that he was meant to be mine. Whiskers. It just fit. Bringing Whiskers home was like bringing sunshine into my life. He quickly shed his shyness, transforming into a playful, curious, and incredibly affectionate companion. He would follow me from room to room, a furry shadow, his purr a constant, soothing rumble. He'd bat at my shoelaces, chase laser pointers with an intensity that bordered on obsession, and curl up on my chest every night, kneading my blanket with his tiny paws before settling into a deep sleep. He was more than a pet. He was family. He was my confidant, my comforter, the silent witness to my joys and my sorrows. He was the purest, most innocent love I had ever known, a steady anchor in the often turbulent waters of my life. His presence was a balm, a constant source of joy, a reminder of simplicity and pure, unadulterated affection. Every morning, his little wet nose would nudge my hand, his soft meow a gentle wake-up call, a signal that a new day, filled with his delightful antics, had begun. I loved him with a fierce, protective love, a love that transcended words, a bond forged in quiet moments and shared existence. He was my little shadow, my furry therapist, my ever-present source of unconditional love, and the thought of anything ever happening to him was simply unbearable. He was, quite simply, my world. Then, Mark entered the picture. He seemed, at first glance, to be everything I thought I wanted. Charming, witty, attentive. He swept me off my feet with grand gestures and sweet words. He remembered small details, made me laugh, and seemed genuinely interested in my life, my passions, my dreams. He was charismatic, with an easy smile and eyes that held a certain sparkle, a mischievous glint that I initially found endearing. Our initial dates were whirlwind affairs, filled with laughter and stimulating conversation, painting a picture of a man who was confident, loving, and utterly devoted. He seemed to understand me in a way no one else had, anticipating my needs, finishing my sentences, making me feel seen and truly appreciated. He spoke of a future together, of shared adventures and quiet domesticity, and I, naive and hopeful, allowed myself to be drawn into his meticulously crafted web. Whiskers, surprisingly, took to Mark quite well at first. Mark would pet him, play with him, even bring him little treats. He'd marvel at Whiskers' agility, his intelligence, his quirky habits. He'd say things like, "He's such a character, just like you," or, "I can see why you love him so much, he's truly special." These interactions, these seemingly genuine moments of connection between Mark and Whiskers, only served to deepen my affection for Mark. It felt like a sign, a confirmation that he was truly a good person, someone who could appreciate the quiet, gentle soul of my feline companion. It made me trust him even more, made me believe that he understood the depth of my bond with Whiskers, that he respected it, and that he would never, ever jeopardize it. Looking back, those were the seeds of my undoing, the moments where I lowered my guard, allowing myself to believe in a facade that was expertly constructed, designed to disarm and ultimately, to destroy. But beneath the charming exterior, slowly, subtly, cracks began to appear. Mark's attentiveness morphed into possessiveness. His witty remarks sometimes carried a sharp edge, a thinly veiled critique. He started to subtly undermine my friendships, my hobbies, my choices, always framing it as caring for me or wanting the best for me. He'd suggest that my friends weren't truly supportive, that my hobbies were taking too much time away from us, that my decisions were often flawed, and he, of course, knew better. It started small, almost imperceptibly, a slow erosion of my self-confidence and my external support system. I found myself making excuses for his behavior, rationalizing his words, dismissing my own growing discomfort as overthinking or sensitivity. He just loves me so much, I'd tell myself, he's just a little intense. The red flags, once faint, became bolder, more frequent. He started to show flashes of intense jealousy, not just of other people, but of anything that took my attention away from him. And yes, that included Whiskers. It started with minor comments, a dismissive tone when Whiskers would jump onto my lap while we were watching a movie. "Always got to be the center of attention, doesn't he?" he'd say, a forced smile on his face, but with an underlying current of irritation. Then, it escalated. He'd complain about Whiskers' fur, about the litter box, about the occasional hairball, things that had never bothered him before, things he had initially dismissed with a laugh. He'd deliberately, accidentally, trip over Whiskers, or nudge him off the couch with more force than necessary. He'd stop playing with him, stop acknowledging him, treating my beloved cat with a cold indifference that chilled me to the bone. He began to see Whiskers not as a creature worthy of affection, but as a rival, a competitor for my time, my attention, my love. I remember one particularly unsettling incident. I was homesick with a bad flu, feeling utterly miserable. Whiskers, in his typical empathetic way, was curled up beside me, purring softly, a comforting weight. Mark came over, ostensibly to check on me, but his mood was sour. He saw Whiskers on the bed and his jaw tightened. "Can't you get that cat off the bed?" he snapped. "It's unhygienic, especially when you're sick." I tried to explain that Whiskers was my comfort, that he always slept with me, that it was normal. But Mark wouldn't have it. He picked Whiskers up, not gently, and placed him outside the bedroom door, closing it firmly. The look of confusion and hurt in Whiskers' eyes, the soft, questioning meow from behind the closed door, broke my heart. It wasn't just about the cat, it was about control, about Mark asserting his dominance, making it clear that his wishes superseded my comfort, my habits, and even the well-being of my pet. That was a significant turning point, a stark revelation of the insidious nature of his possessiveness. The relationship continued its slow, painful unraveling. The arguments grew more frequent, more heated, always revolving around his unreasonable demands, his jealousy, his need for absolute control. He'd manipulate, gaslight, and belittle me, chipping away at my self-worth until I felt like a shadow of my former self. I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate his moods, trying to avoid his outbursts. The vibrant, joyful person I had been before Mark began to fade, replaced by someone anxious, constantly on edge, and deeply unhappy. My friends and family noticed the change, expressing their concern, but I was so deeply entrenched in the toxic cycle that I struggled to see a way out. I was isolated, drained, and emotionally exhausted. Whiskers became my only true solace, the only consistent source of pure, unadulterated love in a life that had become increasingly bleak. His soft fur, his gentle purr, his innocent gaze were the only things that reminded me of who I used to be, of the simple joys I had once known. The breakup, when it finally came, was less of an explosive event and more of a quiet, weary surrender. I had reached my breaking point. The emotional abuse, the constant criticism, the suffocating control, it had become unbearable. I remember sitting him down, my voice trembling, and telling him that it was over. He reacted with a mixture of feigned shock, anger, and a desperate attempt at manipulation. He pleaded, he cried, he promised to change, he threatened. He cycled through every emotional tactic in his arsenal, trying to pull me back into his orbit. But something inside me had finally snapped. The years of emotional battery had left me hollow, but also, paradoxically, had forged a tiny spark of defiance, a desperate need for self-preservation. I was done. I needed to reclaim my life, my peace, myself. The conversation about Whiskers was brief, almost an afterthought for him. "What about the cat?" he'd asked, a casualness in his voice that belied the fury in his eyes. I had looked at him, surprised. "What about him?" "He's my cat, Mark. He came with me." I stated it as a simple fact, an undeniable truth. Whiskers had been my cat long before Mark, and he would remain my cat long after. Mark had merely shrugged, a dismissive gesture. "Fine, whatever. I don't care about that damn cat anyway." He said it with such disdain, such contempt, that a chill ran down my spine. I should have known then, should have seen the darkness lurking beneath his casual indifference, the unspoken threat in his eyes. But I was so consumed by the relief of finally breaking free, so focused on disentangling myself from the emotional wreckage of our relationship, that I missed the warning signs. I believed him. I believed he truly didn't care. That was my grave mistake, a misjudgment that would cost me dearly. The weeks following the breakup were a whirlwind of logistics and emotional processing. We had lived together, so there was the painful task of dividing belongings, of negotiating separate living arrangements. I moved into a temporary place, a small apartment, until I could find something more permanent. Mark was supposed to move out of our shared apartment by a certain date. During this tumultuous period, Whiskers was my constant companion, my emotional support animal in every sense of the word. His presence was a comforting reminder of stability, of pure, uncomplicated love amidst the chaos. He was there when I cried, when I felt overwhelmed, his soft fur a tangible link to everything good and pure in my life. He was a beacon of hope, a promise of a future where I could heal and find happiness again, with him by my side. Then came the day. I had gone to work, a particularly long and draining shift. I remember feeling exhausted, counting down the minutes until I could be home, cuddle Whiskers, and forget the day's stresses. I arrived back at my temporary apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The silence hit me first. A profound, unnatural silence. Usually, Whiskers would be there to greet me, a soft meow, a gentle rub against my legs. But there was nothing. I called his name. "Whiskers? Kitty?" My voice echoed in the empty apartment. A prickle of unease started in my stomach, slowly spreading. I walked through the small space, checking his favorite spots, the windowsill, under the bed, his scratching post. Nothing. My heart began to pound, a frantic drum against my ribs. I started to panic. This wasn't like him. He never hid. He was always there. I searched frantically, calling his name louder and louder, my voice laced with rising desperation. I checked every cupboard, every corner, every possible hiding spot, even the ones I knew were impossible. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Had he slipped out? But the windows were closed, the door secured. A cold, dread-filled certainty began to settle over me. It wasn't an escape. It was something far more sinister. I remembered that Mark still had a spare key to my temporary apartment, a key I had foolishly forgotten to ask for back in the chaos of the breakup. A wave of nausea washed over me. No. He wouldn't. He couldn't. Not Whiskers. I tried to rationalize it away, to convince myself that he was just hiding exceptionally well, or that I was being paranoid. But the gnawing feeling in my gut persisted, a heavy, suffocating weight. I called Mark, my fingers trembling as I dialed his number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. And again. Each unanswered call fueled the growing terror. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he picked up. His voice was calm, almost annoyingly so, a stark contrast to my frantic state. "What do you want?" he asked, a hint of annoyance in his tone. "Mark, have you seen Whiskers?" I choked out, my voice barely a whisper, thick with fear. "He's not here. He's gone." There was a pause, a moment of silence that stretched on, thick with unspoken malice. Then, his voice, cold and devoid of any emotion, delivered the blow that shattered my world. "Oh, Whiskers? Yeah, he's with me." The words hit me like a physical punch to the gut. I gasped, struggling to breathe. "What? What do you mean he's with you?" "Mark, that's my cat. You can't just take him." My voice rose, filled with disbelief and a rapidly escalating rage. "Can't I?" he sneered, a triumphant, cruel edge to his voice. "He was getting lonely without me, don't you think? I mean, he loved me, remember? He missed me. I'm just taking care of him." It was a lie, a sickening, twisted lie. He hated Whiskers. He had made that clear repeatedly. This wasn't about caring, it was about control, about inflicting pain, about making me suffer. "Mark, this isn't funny. Give him back. Right now." My voice was shaking, tears stinging my eyes. "No," he said, the single word dripping with venom, with a chilling finality. "He's mine now. You don't get to just walk away and have everything you want. You left me. You think you can just leave me and keep your precious cat? Think again." The conversation continued, spiraling into a nightmare. He reveled in my distress, his voice growing more smug with each choked sob that escaped my lips. He taunted me, detailing how Whiskers was settling in nicely with him, how he was so much happier now. Every word was a calculated stab, designed to inflict maximum emotional damage. He knew how much Whiskers meant to me, knew that he was my solace, my anchor, my purest joy. And he had deliberately, maliciously stolen him away, not out of any affection for the cat, but purely to hurt me, to punish me for daring to leave him, for daring to choose my own peace over his suffocating control. He saw Whiskers as a possession, an extension of me, and by taking him, he was taking a piece of my soul, a piece of my happiness, leaving me utterly bereft. The immediate aftermath was a blur of raw, excruciating grief and incandescent rage. I called the police, my voice trembling as I tried to explain the situation. The officer on the other end was sympathetic, but ultimately helpless. "Pets are considered property," he explained, his voice gentle but firm. "It's a civil matter, not a criminal one, unless you can prove malicious intent beyond a reasonable doubt, which is very difficult in these kinds of disputes between ex-partners." Property. Whiskers was not property. He was a living, breathing, loving being, a member of my family. The idea that he was reduced to a mere possession, something that could be stolen with little legal recourse, was infuriating, dehumanizing, and utterly devastating. I contacted lawyers, desperately seeking any avenue, any legal loophole that could help me retrieve my beloved cat. The answers were always the same: expensive, complicated, and with no guarantee of success. Pet custody battles are notoriously difficult, often dragging on for months or even years, draining financial resources and emotional energy. The legal system, designed to handle tangible assets, seemed woefully inadequate for the profound emotional bond shared between a human and their pet. I was trapped in a legal limbo, watching my savings dwindle, my hope fading with each passing day. The injustice of it all was a bitter pill to swallow. He had committed an act of pure, unadulterated cruelty, and there seemed to be no path to justice, no way to right this terrible wrong. My friends and family rallied around me, offering support, sympathy, and their own outrage. They saw the devastating toll it was taking on me, the way I was dissolving into a shell of my former self. They tried to help, calling Mark, reasoning with him, threatening him, but he remained unyielding, impervious to their pleas. He reveled in the power he held over me, in the pain he was inflicting. Every call, every message, every attempt to reach him was met with either silence, taunting, or further manipulation. He would send me cryptic messages, vague hints about Whiskers, designed to keep me on tenterhooks, to prolong my agony. "Whiskers is happy, you know," he'd text. "He's getting so much attention now. You never had time for him anyway." Lies, all lies, designed to twist the knife deeper. I spent countless nights staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down my face, the silence of my apartment a deafening reminder of Whiskers' absence. I replayed every memory, every purr, every playful swat, every moment of comfort he had given me. I remembered his soft fur against my cheek, the warmth of his body curled up beside me, the gentle rhythmic thrum of his purr. Now, there was just an empty space, a gaping void where my heart used to be. The grief was profound, a physical ache that permeated every fiber of my being. It wasn't just the loss of a pet, it was the loss of innocence, the shattering of trust, the brutal realization of how truly cruel a person could be. It was the deepest form of betrayal, an act so calculated, so devoid of empathy, that it left me questioning everything I thought I knew about human nature. The days blurred into weeks, then months. I tried to go through the motions of life, but everything felt dull, muted, joyless. The world had lost its color. I found myself obsessively checking social media, hoping to catch a glimpse of Whiskers, praying for a sign that he was okay. Sometimes, Mark would post a picture, a cruel taunt, a fleeting glimpse of my beloved cat, always framed in a way that made it seem like Whiskers was thriving with him, that he had forgotten me. Each picture was a fresh stab, a reminder of what I had lost, of the ongoing cruelty of my ex-partner. I knew it was designed to torment me, but I couldn't stop looking, couldn't stop hoping. It was a vicious cycle of self-inflicted pain, a desperate attempt to maintain some semblance of connection to my lost companion. I joined online communities, forums dedicated to pet owners who had experienced similar heartbreaks. I poured my story out, seeking solace, advice, anything that could help me navigate this unimaginable pain. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, a testament to the universal bond between humans and their pets. Strangers offered kind words, shared their own stories of loss and betrayal, and encouraged me not to give up hope. It was a small comfort, a reminder that I wasn't alone in my suffering, that there were others who understood the depth of this particular brand of grief. But even with their support, the emptiness in my home, and in my heart, remained a constant, aching presence. The betrayal extended beyond just the theft of Whiskers. It was a betrayal of our shared history, of the trust one had placed in him, of the love I had given him. He had taken something pure and innocent, something that had absolutely nothing to do with our relationship issues, and twisted it into a weapon against me. It revealed the true depths of his character, vindictive, petty, and utterly devoid of compassion. His actions were a mirror, reflecting back not only his own cruelty but also my own naivete, my own willingness to overlook the warning signs, to make excuses for his behavior. It was a painful lesson, learned at an unbearable cost. I started to reflect on the nature of betrayal itself. How does one recover from such a profound violation of trust? How do you learn to open your heart again, to risk vulnerability, when you've been so brutally wounded? Every past relationship, every future encounter, became tainted by the shadow of Mark's actions. I found myself questioning everyone's motives, scrutinizing every gesture, every word. The world, once a place of potential connection and joy, became a minefield of potential heartbreak, a landscape riddled with the ghosts of past betrayals. The simple act of trusting another human being became an almost insurmountable challenge. The unique bond with a pet, I realized, is unlike any other. It is a love without judgment, without expectation, a pure, unadulterated connection that transcends words. Whiskers had been that for me, a source of unwavering affection and comfort. His theft was not just the loss of a companion, it was the loss of that unique, unconditional love, a void that no human relationship could ever truly fill. It was a betrayal of that sacred bond, a desecration of something truly pure. It was an act that spoke volumes about Mark's character, not just his cruelty towards me, but his fundamental inability to appreciate or respect the sacredness of such a connection. He saw it as leverage, a tool for his revenge, rather than a living, breathing entity with its own capacity for love and suffering. The inadequacy of the legal system to address this kind of emotional trauma became a constant source of frustration and despair. Justice, in this context, felt like an elusive phantom, always just out of reach. How could a court quantify the value of a purr, the comfort of a gentle head but the solace of a warm body curled up beside you? How could it truly punish an act that inflicted such profound emotional devastation, when it viewed the victim as merely a piece of property? It highlighted a fundamental flaw in our societal understanding of the human-animal bond, reducing it to a transactional relationship rather than recognizing its deeply spiritual and emotional significance. The feeling of injustice gnawed at me, a constant reminder of my powerlessness in the face of his calculated malice. I found myself revisiting memories, both good and bad, trying to piece together where it all went wrong. I remember the early days with Mark, the laughter, the promises, the seemingly genuine affection. How could that person have become this monster? Was it always there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal itself? Or did the breakup, the perceived rejection, unleash a darker side that had previously been dormant? I tormented myself with these questions, searching for answers that would never truly come, explanations that would never fully heal the wound. The truth, I slowly came to realize, was perhaps simpler and far more terrifying. Some people are simply capable of immense cruelty, and their actions often have little to do with you, and everything to do with their own inner demons, their own inability to cope with rejection or perceived slights. The psychological warfare continued intermittently. Mark would occasionally reach out, not to offer a truce, but to twist the knife further. He'd send me photos of Whiskers, looking perfectly content, sometimes even posing him with a new female companion he was dating, a blatant attempt to rub salt in every possible wound. He'd caption them with saccharine messages like, "Whiskers loves his new mommy," or, "So glad Whiskers found a real family." Each message was a fresh wave of nausea, a reminder of his ongoing cruelty, his relentless desire to inflict pain. It was a game to him, a twisted form of entertainment, and I was the unwilling participant, forced to witness the manipulation of my beloved pet for his own sadistic pleasure. These moments were excruciating, tearing open old wounds just as they began to scab over, ensuring that the healing process remained perpetually stalled. The long-term impact of this betrayal was profound, reshaping my understanding of trust, love, and vulnerability. It taught me a harsh lesson about the fragility of human relationships and the depths to which some people will sink out of spite and envy. It made me question my own judgment, my own ability to discern genuine affection from manipulative charm. It left me with a deep-seated fear of opening up, of allowing myself to become truly vulnerable again. The emotional scars were deep, etched into my very being, a constant reminder of the day my world was stolen, piece by agonizing piece. Years passed. The pain never truly went away, but it dulled, transformed into a dull ache rather than a searing wound. I never did get Whiskers back through legal means. The cost, both financial and emotional, was simply too high, the chances of success too slim. I made the heartbreaking decision to let go of the legal battle, to save what little sanity I had left. It was a surrender, but a necessary one, a recognition of my own limitations in the face of such calculated malevolence. But one day, something shifted. I received an anonymous message through a friend of a friend. It was a tip, a location, a quiet message: "Your cat. He's not doing well. Mark moved on. He's at address." My heart leaped into my throat. Could it be? After all this time, hope, a fragile, almost forgotten emotion, began to blossom in my chest. I didn't hesitate. I drove to the address, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. It was an old, dilapidated house, clearly abandoned. I approached with trepidation, my heart pounding, a mixture of hope and fear warring within me. I called out his name. "Whiskers? Kitty?" A faint, weak meow responded from within. Tears immediately welled in my eyes. It was him. It had to be. I pushed open the unlocked door, stepping into a dimly lit, dusty interior. And there he was. He was thinner, his fur matted, his once vibrant eyes dull and tired. He looked up at me, a flicker of recognition in his gaze, but he was too weak to move. My breath caught in my throat. I knelt down, tears streaming freely now, and gently called his name again. "Whiskers. It's me, baby. It's Mommy." He slowly, painstakingly, lifted his head and let out a soft, almost inaudible purr. I reached out, and he tentatively rubbed his head against my hand, a weak, but unmistakable sign of affection. It was him. My beautiful, beloved Whiskers. Abandoned. Discarded. Just like I had been. I carefully picked him up, cradling his frail body against my chest. He was so light, so fragile. The anger, the grief, the heartbreak, all resurfaced with overwhelming force. Mark hadn't just stolen him, he had abused him, neglected him, used him as a pawn in his cruel game, and then, when he was no longer useful, he had discarded him like trash. The sheer depravity of it all was sickening. I rushed Whiskers to the nearest emergency vet. The prognosis was grim. He was severely malnourished, dehydrated, and suffering from several untreated infections. The vet, a kind and compassionate woman, looked at me with pity. "He's been through a lot," she said softly. "It's going to be a long road." And it was. The next few weeks were a roller coaster of emotions, a desperate fight for Whiskers' life. I spent every spare moment at his side, talking to him, petting him, reminding him of the love he had once known. Slowly, painstakingly, he began to recover. His purr returned, stronger each day. His eyes regained some of their sparkle. He started to eat, to gain weight, to play again, albeit gently at first. It was a miracle, a testament to his resilience, and to the power of love. Whiskers never fully regained his former boisterous energy. The trauma had left its mark, a quiet reserve that hadn't been there before. But he was home. He was safe. And he was loved, more fiercely and profoundly than ever before. His presence was a constant reminder of the darkness I had faced, but also of the light that had eventually broken through. He was a living testament to survival, to enduring love, and to the quiet triumph of hope over despair. As for Mark, I never saw or heard from him again after that. The anonymous tip, I later learned, came from someone who had witnessed his casual cruelty, someone who had finally had enough. It was a small act of defiance against a truly despicable person, an act that brought my beloved Whiskers back to me. There was no grand justice, no dramatic confrontation, no legal reckoning for his actions. He simply faded into the shadows, a cautionary tale, a dark chapter in my life that I was finally able to close. The experience changed me irrevocably. It taught me the importance of setting boundaries, of trusting my instincts, of recognizing the subtle signs of manipulation and control. It taught me that true strength lies not in enduring abuse, but in finding the courage to walk away, to reclaim your own narrative, and to protect the innocent beings who depend on you. It taught me that some wounds never truly heal, but they can scar over, becoming a testament to your resilience rather than a constant source of pain. And it reinforced, more than anything, the profound, unshakable power of the human-animal bond. Whiskers was not just a pet. He was a symbol of enduring love, a survivor, a gentle soul who had endured unimaginable cruelty and still found the capacity to purr, to love, to trust again. His return was a redemption, a quiet victory in a battle that had felt utterly lost. He became a living reminder that even after the deepest betrayals, even after the most profound losses, there is always hope for healing, for reconnection, and for finding joy again, in the most unexpected of places. This story, my story, is a warning. It's a testament to the insidious nature of jealousy and betrayal, to how a person's envy can manifest in the most cruel and unexpected ways, targeting not just you, but the very things you hold most dear. It's a reminder that sometimes, the monsters aren't under your bed. They're the ones you invite into your home, into your heart, under the guise of love. And it's a plea to always protect the innocent, the vulnerable, those who cannot speak for themselves. Their love is a gift, and their well-being is a sacred trust that should never be violated, especially not in the petty, vindictive games of a broken heart. If you've ever experienced this kind of profound betrayal, if you've ever had your heart ripped out by someone you once trusted, or if you've ever fought for the innocent creatures who bring so much light into our lives, then you understand the depth of this pain and the resilience it takes to rebuild. Remember that you are not alone. And remember that true love, whether it's for a person or a pet, is a precious, fragile thing that deserves to be protected at all costs. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever faced the chilling reality of betrayal and envy, or if you simply appreciate hearing stories that delve into the complex, often dark, corners of human relationships, please consider subscribing to this channel. Share your own experiences in the comments below, because sharing our stories is how we heal, how we learn, and how we remind ourselves that even in the face of profound darkness, there is always strength in community. Thank you for listening.